Thank you, Russell. So it's time to listen to the last keynote of here at Nonick 2011. As a personal experience, when I first saw our next speaker on the Nonick program some months ago, I marked today as a special date on my calendar. He's part of the team responsible for one of the most used apps on my iPhone. He has extensive experience in engineering, product management, and design in rapid growth startup organizations. I'm so excited. He was VP Communications at Yahoo, where he held many key roles, eventually leading the entire design, product management, and engineering for Yahoo's flagship communications product portfolio with over 300 million users. Today, he's responsible for Shazam's technology-driven operations and infrastructure. I'm honored to have him here on stage. Please, a warm welcome to the CTO of Shazam, Jason Titus.
Thank you. I don't know if what I have to say has the depth and importance as our last speaker, but I hope you guys will still find it interesting even at the tail end of a long day after an enjoyable evening with fine wine. Let me see if I can pull up my presentation. So I'm thinking that many of you might know a little bit about Shazam, but I think there's a lot of things that people don't realize about Shazam as a company that are probably useful to understand if you're an entrepreneur or a developer. Shazam is definitely a company that has a long history and had a good amount of time of hard challenges before it had some of the successes it's had recently. To give you a sense of where we are now, we're currently, when Apple came out with a list of the top iPhone apps ever, Shazam was number 4. It was the 4th most downloaded app on the iPhone since the launch of the App Store. Shazam actually received a pre-release version of the SDK, worked with Apple, and was one of the apps that was available when the iPhone launched. So we actually, even I meant to update this, we've already crossed over 140 million users. And that's across, really at this point, all the major phone platforms, with iPhone and Android being the highest volume ones, but we're on Nokia, Windows Phone 7, even on some of the Brew and other platforms. And we're adding over 1.2 million users every week. So at this point, we have a huge group of new users coming in. We've had over 2 billion songs Shazammed, and an interesting sense to get a sense of how that has shifted. It was really about 8 years of the company being around to get to the first billion, and that was last fall. And now we've already crossed 2 billion, and we will cross 3 billion not too long from now. We're very international in a number of different countries. We're doing more than 4 million songs every day. And another thing I think people don't really get a sense of is that Shazam as an application really, a lot of people use as a very commercial experience. They hear something they're interested in, they Shazam the song, and then more than 10% of the people who actually Shazam that song go on to then buy it immediately. So we drive a huge amount of revenue to online music stores. We're one of the largest referrers into any of the music stores you see just from our user base. But it really wasn't always that way. This is actually an article in Scientific American talking about Shazam back in 2003, saying, isn't this cool what you can do with advanced math? You know, who'd have thought that you can solve this problem of, in noisy environments where people are actually, in bars or cafes or riding in their car or whatever, that you could, on a mobile device, be able to take that sample of that audio and determine across millions of tracks what song is the right song. And when the founders first came up with the idea, they actually met with a number of different professors and leaders in the field and said, "Is this possible? We have this great use case. We think that that people want to know what they're hearing, and they have mobile phones, and couldn't this happen?" And they had a lot of people who said, "No, there's just computational. It's going to be too difficult. You're going to have high false positive rates. You're never going to be able to do it well." But they finally found somebody who's a professor at Stanford who said, "I have one PhD student I had who I think might be your guy." And his name's Avery Wang, and he actually is quoted in this article. There's a white paper on the algorithm he ended up coming up with that describes it. But he figured out a computationally manageable way to do this. And they did that back in 2002 or 2001, 2002. The problem was that there wasn't really an ecosystem for advanced mobile applications and buying things and all of that at that point. And so as a company, Shazam went for years without really having much activity at all. And so as a company, Shazam, in the US, nobody would even fund them. They were US entrepreneurs who had this idea and they wanted to do it, and they talked to a bunch of different people and they wouldn't fund them. And they came to the UK, and mobile was more happening there, and they got some funding and were able to set up. And so Shazam to this day is a London-based company. But even then, for a number of years, it originally was a short code you would dial. You hold up your phone, and you get SMS'd back what the name of the song was. And it was a good, party trick, and people liked it a bit, but it wasn't a way to actually, it wasn't that rewarding for users, and there wasn't any way to take action on that. But as you see, you can probably generally sense when the iPhone launched and when Nokia started having more rich applications, it changed the world for Shazam, and I think it changed it for a lot of other companies. And I think that's an important thing to be considering as a entrepreneur, as a technologist, is that what is the environment, what you're building in, that you will be building in, and how will your users actually be able to take the service you're providing and do something meaningful with it? Because we had years of technical capability, the existence was there, the music library was there, a number of people had heard of it, but it wasn't until that ecosystem was there and that environment was there that there was actually massive growth. And I think we're not the only company that went through things like this. Pandora was around for years. They were known, they were successful, they were based in a web browser. But when the iPhone took off, that really changed things for them. And the same thing now with their Android app. And if you didn't see, they IPO'd on Wednesday, and they're now a $3 billion company. So, same, like roughly I think 8 or 9 years of reasonable growth, kind of hard times, and then as the environment shifts, things become possible. And one thing I think that was surprising to me when Apple actually came out and said, "Hey, here's what our top apps ever are," is you see some things that I think are kind of, that tell a story about why mobile is an interesting place to be. Okay, obviously Facebook, huge, massive consumer application, makes sense that they're the most popular. Pandora, they did a really good job of of seeing a use case that people wanted, a problem that people wanted to solve, and providing an application that met it. Google, another massive consumer company. I would say, for Shazam, I think we met a need that people had and did it in a technologically interesting and user understandable way. And then, you have a couple classic things, but the fact that you have some little companies mixed in with these multi-billion-dollar behemoths says that mobile is allowing, it has the capability to allow true innovation and really kind of breakout technologies if you can create something that meets a need, does it well, and then there's probably a fair amount of luck and distribution and hard work, but it is possible. I think that now we're seeing another wave of that. You see things like Hipstamatic, Instagram, who are coming in, and that's just in the photo space, but people who have seen other areas where many people would say, that's done. Camera, check. We know how to do digital photography. Why would you bother doing anything there? But these guys are growing really quickly. You can look in other areas as well. I mean, even in the phone space, you could argue that when the iPhone came out, I mean, it didn't do anything really new that other phones didn't do. It just did it dramatically better. And it still was lacking major functionality that they had to come in afterwards and build. So as far as some of the things, for us, how do we come at evolving our product? Because we very much met a specific need, and I think met it very well. But now it's time for us to do some more things that we think that people will like, that will be sort of have the magic of what we think we already launched with Shazam, but sort of take it further. So one of those things, I'm actually going to take a high risk and actually try and demonstrate live. But we launched this week something which is synchronized live lyrics for any song that, for more than 25,000 songs that people are tagging. And I have a video of it, but I think instead of showing the video, I will try and give you guys a quick demonstration, and we can see if we can switch to the iPad video. It's a little bit fuzzy, just so you know that if you're an HDMI out user on an iPad or iPhone, there are still some tricks to work out. So this is just regular old video. All right. So let's say that you are, oh, actually, I think I can make the audio a little more legible to folks.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your
So what we've launched is that for over 25,000 tracks, we can real-time sync with exactly what the lyrics are of that song, both starting and stopping. Just real quick show you, we have a couple. One of the things we also did is we said we wanted to keep it interesting by making everything a custom experience, customized for the particular song.
Let's take a journey.
Hold on.
I know a place where the grass is really greener.
Did this before.
Warm, wet and wild. There might be something in the water. Sipping gin and juice, laying underneath the palm trees. And before break their necks, trying to creep a little sneak peek.
What?
You could travel the world, but nothing comes close to the golden close.
Sorry, I had a little.
Party with us, you'll be falling in love. California girls were unforgettable. Daisy Dukes, bikinis on top, sun-kissed skin so hot, will melt your popsicle.
I'll do one more that's not. Sorry, I had a Twitter notification on the iPad or the iPad that sort of messed things up. But I will, to show that there are different styles. So anyways, we think this is something people will find pretty fun. It's certainly from the folks that we've demoed it to and the initial reviews we've seen on the App Store, we think that it's probably going to be a pretty popular feature. And let's see, probably. If you actually are, if you like it and want to mess around with it, it is available on the App Store right now as our Encore Shazam Encore app. Unfortunately, it's launched in the U.S. and Canada. So if you have a phone that is a U.S. or Canada phone or configured as such, then it will work. Otherwise, it will be released globally, country by country, as we work through all the lyrics, licensing rights, et cetera. But so for us to build that application, we said, you know, we have a pretty high bar of what we're actually willing to launch for our users, and it has to have, at a high level, we say it has to meet our brand promise. If you know, if we ask our users, does Shazam work? We get, you know, is our product accurate? In general, the response we get is about 90% of the time. And so each of the features we launch, we want to have that same kind of feeling. And so we spent a fair amount of time looking at how are we going to have, if we launch this lyrics product, how's it going to work? We ended up acquiring a small company that had built technology to actually synchronize when do lyrics start and end for each line. It does pretty deep analysis of every song, and that let us not go at it 1, 2, 10, 100, 200 songs, but say, no, when we launch, we want to have over 25,000 songs. We want to have huge coverage so that when our users are actually out and about, this will work for them. So that's something that we've done in sort of our straight consumer, how do we make our existing functionality work better? Then we said, okay, what are the things that we can do with our technology that actually, you know, make our app more useful and leverage the fact that we have, you know, like I said, over 140 million users out there. And connecting to sort of the previous discussion around how has internet advertising evolved, like what can we do to take all of these mobile devices that are sitting out there and make them even more useful to people and actually provide a richer experience? And so one of the things we've launched is Shazam for television. So in the US right now, a number of advertisers are now making their ads Shazam enabled. And so when you're watching the ad, you can actually just Shazam the ad and you'll get a whole series of additional information. So it ends up looking something like this. This is an initial project we worked on.
So tell me about yourself.
Well, you know, an organized person, somebody who does not leave details. Ouch. I'm actually very, very good with groups. Group work. I've surpassed all my goals in my previous position, my prior job, and your competitor. My personnel under me have surpassed their own goals.
Oh. Get famous at mytalkingstain.com.
So, and then this is something we did a huge campaign with Old Navy, who's one of the largest clothing retailers in the U.S. They did a national television campaign with multiple commercials, and in every single one of their commercials, they included the Shazam logo, and they put together custom content so that when you Shazam that ad, you would then be able to buy any of the clothes that the people in the ads were wearing. You could get coupons, you could get discounts, you could find out where the nearest store was. We also took a similar but slightly different version of that song, and they played it in all of the Old Navies across the country. And they put up posters by the door of every outlet they had that said, if you hear these songs, Shazam it, and you'll get discounts, and you'll get free. They gave away free jeans to a number of folks. And it ended up being something that they were very happy with. This gives you an idea of sort of what that felt like. Excellent. I'll accept that. Try once again.
Ladies, time to raise the cuff. I ain't bluffing, show some ink, 'cause I ain't seen nothing. Welcome to the ankle show. Those little big legs, it's how it goes. Jeans raised up, shoes down low. Welcome to the ankle show.
Everything that they were wearing was available through the store.
Let your ankles show with new ankle jeans and flirty flats. Old Navy, turn up today.
So they liked Old Navy liked that ad so much, the overall campaign so much that their CMO, their chief marketing officer, and our head of sales ended up presenting at an ad technology conference to talk about how this was sort of a new wave of mobile interaction with advertising, and how do you actually make this something that's overall the way people move from hearing something to actually taking action. And Financial Times kind of described it, I thought, nicely about how you connect these things. And there actually was a tweet from a presentation that was given a couple days ago where somebody said, this essentially, it's a QR code for audio. Just make it really easy to say, whatever you're hearing, we can let you take action on it. And the reasons why we were thinking this was actually something to go after, and in looking at the use cases and why would we invest in any particular features, 86% of people who are watching television are, in the US at least, are using their mobile phone at the same time. So you have lots of efforts like Apple TV and Google TV and these things that try and put more and more functionality into the television itself, but the reality is the vast majority of the people already have a mobile device in their hand at the same time. And in fact, if there's 3 or 4 people watching television, they're not all necessarily that interested in engaging with whatever, there's a guy is watching a show and sees a snowboarding commercial. He might want to go in and find out more about that. The person sitting next to them, maybe not so much. So what we offer, and what I think a lot of people will be an interesting area for people to evolve the use cases around and new technologies around, is how do you make a great experience for the other people and to leverage the second screen that people have in their hands while they're taking part in other activities. And so just a little detail on that. When on the Old Navy ads, when you click through, got a custom result, they could then go through and see music videos, find out more. Lots of other brands signing up for that now. Some of the things that Old Navy was pretty happy with is that almost a third of the users who actually tagged one of these commercials ended up going and shopping online and interacting further with the ad that they saw. And when we launched this, the commercial itself got up into the tag charts for Shazam, above Lady Gaga and the Black Eyed Peas. That was something, that's an advertiser's dream, is that somehow there's more people who want to hear their content or getting excited about it than major media. So I don't know how we're doing on time, and I don't know how interested people are in sort of geeky details, but I do get the question very often, how does Shazam work? I hear it from everybody, from my parents, who really don't want to hear that long of an answer, through to computer scientists who are like, tell me, what kind of algorithms are you guys doing? This seems like it's kind of tricky. The challenges are sort of manyfold. Right? You have everything from, if you're listening to recorded stuff, old tapes or records, whatever, you actually have defects in the media. A lot of folks have old MP3s that have been compressed really badly. For rights protection, companies put in watermarks that sometimes mess up how things sound. On the radio, a lot of people don't realize, but radio stations, they control how much music they can play in a window. They want to get more ads in, they'll actually speed up the songs. So if you just do a direct match, is this exactly the same song as what I have on my what I have on my CD at home? It's not. It might be 3% faster. It might even be 5% faster. Sometimes DJs will slow things down so they get songs into roughly the same rhythms. And so if you try to ignore that, suddenly the app wouldn't work for most radio. So and this is something we had to take into account when we're doing the lyric sync. Because if we didn't take that into account, it would be in sync when you first started, but a minute into the song, the two things would start to diverge. So we take it pretty seriously that we have to look at what is the real-world environment that our app's going to be used in. And I think that's something that a lot of times, as developers, we can be guilty of, is that we think, yes, it works for me. It works in the cases that I use it in. But if you think, well, really, how is this going to, when somebody's banging along in the subway or something, is this going to do what I think it should do? Just being able to know, even if you're in the middle of a song, there's lots of time spent for us around figuring out lots of different mixes of songs, different versions. And our technology really focuses on saying, we're going to get down to the millisecond level. We know if there's two different performances by the same band of the same song, we'll recognize which one was which. We won't get them mixed up. Now, if they take exact digital duplicates and actually are doing loops and stuff, then it gets harder. But as far as we really make an effort to say that we're going to do accurate recognition. And of course, it can't be inconceivably expensive because we're constantly, we have over 10 million songs in our system. We're adding new songs all the time. We have a music team that is out constantly saying, what are the unsigned acts? What is the up-and-coming music? What are people really interested in? In that way, we're kind of a weird mix. I can just tell you in our office, we have programmers and we have salespeople, but we also have a music sourcing team. And they're going out all the time. And so it's a little tired sometimes. It looks a little bit like this crowd, perhaps. They're coming in, they were out all night listening to what's being played in the clubs, knowing what's going on. And we have folks all around the world that are doing that so that we make sure that we have the music that people are going to like in the future in our system. And to give you a rough sense of the actual how it's laid out, when looking at, we have to look at that music and find key points in the frequency and time and patch them together and then compare them in ways where even if they're slowed down or sped up, sort of stretching how those points are, that we can still find a match. So I won't get too much into the set, but the general idea is that we're saying we want to get rid of ambient noise, but we want to find the core signal, and that we want to be able to do that generate the signatures and send a really small package back from a mobile phone so that people don't complain about sort of data rates, and then be able to respond quickly. So that was overall the things I was going to go over. I don't know if folks have questions about either the things I was showing here or about Shazam as a company. I will say, I think somebody else mentioned as well, we're hiring. We're in London and the US, and we're constantly looking for good developers, designers. We develop on iPhone, Android. We do other platforms as well. Huge back-end work. You'll see some very cool things coming out over the next year or two that I think will take our core technology and do things that folks might not have thought were possible. So I think it's an exciting place to be, and that we've got some neat things in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Some questions from the audience? We have a lot. I saw a lot of hands up. I will start from the other side.
I noticed on one of the slides you had something that said the Shazam effect and at 4%. What is that a measure of?
That was someone else's slide, and I meant to cut that last one out.
But it had to do with
essentially
we answer any of those questions.
One of the things that we've seen for a lot of the companies that do Shazam enable their ads is that they actually get a huge bump across their whole sort of digital presence. So it's not just that we see people coming in and interacting with their ad, but their website results go up, the search results for their product go up. I mean, it actually turns out that it is a doorway for people to say, I want to find out more about that company. They Shazam the ad, they see the things, and they actually go off and find out even more. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's a shorthand, quick way for you to connect with whatever you just heard.
I was wondering if Shazam is ever going to be able, like if you go to a club or if you go dancing or if you have a DJ doing something, is it ever going to be able to pull a track and say, okay, he's looping this song with bass from this track with something else?
I had a slide that I wanted to put together, but unfortunately I was having PowerPoint audio file problems. We recognize that now. So if there are 3 or 4 different tracks that have parts overlaid, stretched, or slowed down, we bring it back on the server side. The challenge that we have as app developers is saying, we have right now a single button. You click a button, you get a result. Got it. And we really have pretty intense debates about, okay, if we know there's multiple results. So an example for us right now is we're starting to make TV shows taggable. Like, you can Shazam a TV show and find out more about the show. But we know that a significant number of people Shazam the music in shows. That's how, oh, I love this song they're playing in the background. That's really cool. But when you get that collision, which result do we want to give people? And do we start making a much more complex UI where you have to sort of say, no, 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 I wanted the show, not the music, or the music, not the show? Or do I bring back and say, here's the 4 potential hits? We think it's one of these. And maybe in the end we end up saying, there's Shazam for pros or Shazam for geeks or whatever that has it's the whole thing. But we really, really want to make sure we nail the experience for somebody who's just like, I want to know more about that, and hit one button and no.
Next. I saw someone on the other side before. Oh.
What about the possibility to use your system to detect plagio? How it says? For example, when it was the argument between Coldplay and Joe Satriani about the sound, if you maybe you can have info about the sounds match at 99%. So maybe in a youth you can.
Well, first off, we work really closely with the bands and the labels, and so the last thing we want to do is get ourselves in between a fight between two of them. We actually, and I'm a little bit, I'm kind of serious on that, because we actually have had a lot of bands that are now coming into our offices and recording content, and a lot of the major bands are talking about, I just can't really talk about exactly what we're talking about, but really interesting integrations. Like, some of the biggest bands in the world are talking to us about things that they could do that would be really exciting with Shazam for their users, their concert goers, et cetera. So we want to be very careful about not pissing them off. That being said, we have had people have discovered things that the bands might not have wanted people to discover through Shazam, because Shazam is designed for specific recorded music. Like, we know exactly what song we're hearing. Not generally somebody's playing and it sounds like this. So if you Shazam a band that's playing live and it comes back and it tells you that song, it's not so live. Now, it might be that they're using a backing track, and so part of it is live. They might be singing over top of recorded music of what they're doing. But a number of bands that did not, that sort of more were claiming that they were being live, there was people who were very excited about. Once again, I don't want to name names, but there have been very famous bands who people are like, yes, I Shazammed their concert and got exactly their song. I will say Eurovision actually was a huge spike for us in traffic, the Eurovision contest. And that normally would mean, because it was live television, right now our product, that should not work, and so our recognition rate should have been very low. But I will say our recognition rate was just fine for the Eurovision contest, whatever that may mean.
Thank you. Maybe we have time for just another question. Okay. Thank you, Jason. Stay on stage. Chapelle a moment.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Very nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you.